In the year 1844, the Mormon prophet Joseph Smith and his brother were murdered in a jail in Carthage, Illinois. A year later, the men accused of the murder came to trial. Now, what you're about to see, a play called Hancock County, dramatizes events surrounding the murder trial. The playwright wrote it from many sources, including transcripts of the trial itself. Originally performing the play for live audiences at Brigham Young University, the cast then came here to this soundstage where their final performance was taped. A word about the way plays work. The word is imagination, yours. It's your imagination that will allow actors to assume more than one role or to step out of character occasionally to narrate events in the play. The play will whisk you from small-town taverns to a temple site to a noisy, crowded courtroom without ever changing the set. So we invite you to awaken your imagination as you watch Hancock County.
Hancock County, a square of prairie on the edge of Illinois.
Its western corner cut off by the wide, meandering Mississippi River.
It is 1844. Hancock County has the largest population in the state.
22,559 inhabitants. Half are members of a new religion, the Mormons. That half grows larger every month.
My general invitation is, let all who will come. Come and partake of the poverty of Nauvoo. Joseph Smith, the Mormon prophet.
Many established citizens fear the Mormons' growing power,
resent their buying up of land,
and hate their religious views.
This deluded, fanatical, and ignorant sect is about to be poured upon us by thousands, and thus, like the locusts of Egypt, wither away every vestige of godliness. Reverend B.F. Morris.
The tension between the Mormons and the old settlers is hemmed into a hectic triangle with 3 cities at the points.
Carthage, the county seat, population 300.
Except during circuit court weeks in May and October, when the town swells up like a tick feeding on a steer.
Warsaw, population 500, home to Thomas Sharp and his populist newspaper, the Warsaw Signal.
and Nauvoo, population 11,000, the biggest city in Illinois, 10 times bigger than Warsaw and Carthage put together.
Nauvoo is the Mormons' Zion, their kingdom of God on earth.
Built after what was left of them, ran for their lives from the first kingdom of God across the river in Missouri.
Their leader is Joseph Smith, prophet, mayor, general of the Nauvoo Legion, and chief judge, all rolled into one.
His followers revere him.
The honest in heart ran together and gathered around him and loved him as they did their own lives. Brigham Young.
His detractors are equally passionate.
June 5th, 1844, a new anti-Mormon newspaper in Nauvoo prints its first edition.
We pledge our unmitigated disobedience to Joseph Smith, the self-constituted monarch, and to his gross moral imperfections. The Nauvoo Expositor.
The next day, the Nauvoo City Council orders the press destroyed.
A detachment from the Nauvoo Legion smashes the press and scatters the type.
In Warsaw, editor Thomas Sharp is quick to react.
We hasten to inform you of the outrage perpetrated by the ruthless, lawless band of Mormon mobocrats at the dictum of that unprincipled wretch, Joe Smith. The Warsaw Signal.
Within days, Joseph and his brother Hiram are in jail at Carthage, awaiting a hearing.
And that is where they are murdered.
June 27, 1844. Hot and humid. The sky full of clouds gives way to glaring sun.
7 men from Carthage militia guard the jail.
Inside with Joseph and Hiram are 2 friends, church leaders Willard Richards and John Taylor.
5:00 p.m. Between 100 and 200 discharged soldiers from the Warsaw militia smear their faces with gunpowder and make for the jail.
A party of men are coming to take Joe Smith and hang him on the square. Well, come on, you cowards. Damn you, come on. Those boys guarding the jail will all be killed. Tom Marsh, officer in the Carthage militia.
In the event, not one guard receives even a scratch.
Despite the hundreds of rounds fired.
Now, some in the crowd below begin firing up into the second-story window.
Others rush up the steps inside the jail to the room where the 4 men are held.
Now Joseph and his brother prepare to fire pistols smuggled into them earlier.
All brace themselves against the door.
Now the men with the blackened faces fire on the door, shattering a panel 4 feet 3 inches from the floor. The prisoners jump back. Hiram Smith fires his revolver, hitting no one.
A shot through the door hits Hiram in the face on the right side of his nose.
A second shot through the jail window hits Hiram in the back.
Hiram falls to the floor, face up.
I am a dead man, he says.
He never moves again.
He's 44 years old.
And now his brother bends over him.
Oh, my poor dear brother Hiram, he says.
Now Joseph flings open the door and fires all 6 shots at his enemies on the other side. He throws the gun down and slams the door.
Now, with his cane, John Taylor tries to beat down the barrels of the gun sticking through the hole.
A barrage of bullets blows him back from the door. He is grievously wounded, but survives.
Now, Joseph runs to the window, hoping to jump. Crossfire hits him from the hole in the door and through the window from the yard below.
One ball in the right collarbone.
1 ball in the chest.
2 in the back.
And now he falls through the window to the ground below.
Oh, Lord, my God, he says.
He raised himself up against a well curb. He drew up one leg and stretched out the other. And died. Thomas Dixon, eyewitness.
He was 38 years old.
Carthage Jail, 8:05 o'clock p.m. Joseph and Hiram are dead. Taylor wounded. I am well. The citizens here are afraid of the Mormons attacking them. I promised them no. Willard Richards.
The Mormons do not attack.
Instead, they grieve in their thousands.
The very streets of Nauvoo seem to mourn. The late Kimball.
The news hit like a thunderbolt, crushing the people to earth. Emily Dow Partridge.
Afraid their enemies would try to desecrate the bodies of the Smiths.
They hold a public funeral for coffins filled with sand and rocks, and then secretly bury the brothers in unmarked graves.
Governor Thomas Ford to the Illinois House of Representatives.
The state will find and prosecute the perpetrators of this bloody deed. They will be brought before a court of justice in Hancock County. We will vindicate the violated honor of the state of Illinois.
I told you, it ain't bad at all. It didn't leave hardly a mark on either arm.
I can see bruises starting.
Where? Well, that won't show, will it?
Is that all you're worried about, Anne?
My head aches a bit. He shook me pretty good, I guess. You didn't see it, did you?
No, I was out back checking on the stove.
Nor hear nothing?
I heard his voice raised is all.
Poor man, he's so worried.
Don't see why he takes his worry out on you, though.
Now, listen, Eliza, Mr. Fleming didn't take nothing out on me. It ain't like he planned it. He just exploded. You know how black powder explodes?
You're my kin, Anne. I can't help worrying for you.
Well, don't go blaming my husband, please.
What set him off this time?
Don't say this time. There ain't so many times.
There aren't so few either.
Well, it's his money worries getting worse is all. We ain't bringing enough money into the tavern with just the drinkers, Mr. Fleming says. If we're going to make Warsaw House go, we got to get more boarders like they do over to Hamilton House in Carthage. And I've tried.
I know you have.
No. Now, I'm all right. I'm getting back to work. I meant to tell you, the Larimores are short. They're a whole $1 short almost.
The Larimores? I don't think so. Is that January?
That's what you wrote down on the paper.
Then they're not short. January, they left for 5 days upriver to visit Abraham's father's cousin, remember?
Of course I don't remember. That's why I got you. So they ain't short.
No. And neither is Mr. Fox. At least not yet. It's June 16th. He's supposed to pay us in Stovewood.
Do you remember everything?
Listen, Anne. I'll do this reckoning. You hate it.
You don't mind?
I don't mind a bit. I'll do it later.
All right. Thank you. I do feel a bit peculiar.
Well, that's the last of them. We're ready for breakfast. I think I'll go to bed an hour. I was up late with supper. Do you mind?
Of course not. Adeline can manage, or Ashbel can come in if we get a lot. Or wait, Eliza. Wait just a minute. There's something else. We need to talk just a little bit.
Judge Young. It's Orville Browning, Judge. Welcome to Carthage.
Mr. Browning.
I'm counsel for the defense, Judge. I'm representing the men accused of murdering the Smiths.
Yes, of course. Mr. Browning. Please forgive me. The journey has wearied me.
Will you join me?
I'm just on my way up to my room.
You come from Quincy?
And from Springfield yesterday. So I believe a spell of rest will do me good.
I took the liberty of ordering you a breakfast, Judge.
Breakfast?
They say it's the best in Carthage. Should be out in under 3 minutes.
Well, all right. Thank you, Mr. Browning.
Not at all.
You seem to have anticipated my arrival.
I made the journey 2 days ago. Sabbath travelers are born to me.
Oh, yes. I believe I recall that now.
6 days may work be done, but in the 7th is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord.
I respect your devotion, sir.
Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death.
Yes. Not in Illinois, of course.
No. Has Murray arrived yet?
Who? Oh, hadn't you heard? He's retired from the case.
Has he?
The governor has asked Josiah Lamborn to step in.
Josiah Lamborn? Yeah. Really?
Bit of a tall order for him with so little time to prepare.
That changes things.
Well, why is that?
Murray McConnell is a man of integrity, but Josiah Lamborn...
You have a low opinion of him?
Well, the profaneness. Lately, the drinking.
Yes, that's a pity, isn't it?
And he took bribes.
Once or twice, allegedly.
When he was Attorney General of Illinois. He brought shame to an honorable profession. I believe he should have been disbarred.
He did some fine work for the state, I thought.
You're right, of course. You're a compassionate man, Judge. It's an honor to have you sitting this case.
Never thought I'd be out riding circuit again. But Governor Ford wants a genuine Supreme Court judge, so here I am.
He hopes this case will discredit you, of course.
Who does? The governor? Why would he hope that?
Well, because you're opposing him in the next election, aren't you?
I've heard that rumor.
I fervently hope it's more than a rumor.
You say this as a Whig?
Well, we feel, myself and an influential segment of my party, we feel Illinois needs someone above politics now. She needs a statesman.
A statesman?
And we think it's you, sir.
Do you?
Yes, sir, we do. We all feel it would be an honor to support a man of your caliber.
Well, that's very gratifying. That's really very gratifying, Mr. Browning.
So we mustn't let this trial besmirch your reputation in any way.
No. No, we mustn't. That's a good point.
You can count on me, sir.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of the trial, there is just a small issue.
Yes?
Yes. It's about jury selection.
Really? Well, what's troubling you, Mr. Browning?
Say, I wonder if you could help me out here. I'm looking for Brigham Young.
Why don't you try the mansion house? He's generally down there.
Damn it, they told me down there he was up here.
They did they?
Yeah, said he was up here working on this thing. Well, what is this, the next state capitol?
It's a temple.
Temple. I'll be damned. Do you know where Young is?
I might. You are, sir?
Josiah Lamborn,
You're the Attorney General.
former Attorney General.
You're prosecuting in the murder trial.
Trials with an S. There's two of them. Joseph now save his brother for later.
Really? What advantage is there in that?
Well, keeps it simple for the jury. Look, mister, you go ahead working on your temple. I'll find Young. He must be around here somewhere.
You found him, Mr. Lamborn. You must forgive me. There are so many writs out against me these days, I have to be careful about people I don't know. I've told them that at the Mansion House. They don't seem to listen.
It's an honor to meet you, sir. Now, I'm not real sure about your position here. I know to you people Joseph Smith.
Joseph was the prophet, Mr. Lamborn. I'm just the president of the council. And the 12.
Sounds important. 12 what?
Apostles.
Apostles? Like in the Bible?
Yes.
You sure?
What were you expecting?
Well, somebody a little more, Listen, you can't go by me. I ain't a religious man.
Just now, of course, I'm a glazier. What Joseph began, we will finish. Even if, like Israel of old, we must do it with a trowel in one hand and a sword in the other.
I guess what I'm driving at is, what do I call you?
Tell me, what do you think of the windows?
Window?
The way they catch the sun.
That's your part? The window?
That's right.
Well, there certainly is a lot of them.
I think you'd better call me Mr. Young. Now, if you'll excuse me, this window needs to be in that wall before the council meeting at noon.
Can I give you a hand? I got awful important things to talk to you about before the trial. I only got a couple of days.
That all depends, Mr. Lamborn. Let me see your hands. No, I don't think you can. You go on back down to the Mansion House. Take some refreshment. I'll be with you presently.
This case can be won, Mr. Young. I can win it.
Now, please, Eliza, please. You got to understand, Mr. Fleming
That's why Mr. Fleming turned into black powder.
What?
That's why he shook you.
Now,
He wanted to kick me out, and you said no.
He ain't kicking you out. It ain't permanent. It's just for court week coming up. We can make some money, Mr. Fleming says. Then you'll come back.
Do you promise, Anne? Do you swear it?
Of course. 2 weeks and you'll be right back in your rooms, all right? All right, Lizzie, dear, who's everything nice and not a scrap of bad in her.
Oh, all right.
Good. Now, will you still do the reckoning later on?
Of course I will.
You've got a head for it. Everything stays right in there.
Good morning.
Why, Mr. Sharp, good morning. Well, look, Eliza, it's Mr. Sharp. Well, we haven't seen you in here for a month of Sundays.
Oh, I'm just on my way to my newspaper.
Well, we'll get you some breakfast.
Oh, just coffee, I think. Did you see the sky last night, Anne?
We was in all night with guests.
Just about half a moon shining down on the river. Willows hanging over the slip. Beautiful.
I'll get you your coffee, Mr. Sharp.
Oh, Eliza can get it, can't she?
Sure. I'll just make some.
Mr. Sharp, do you know of any persons of upstanding character who might like to board here at Warsaw House? At least for court week. It looks like we have a vacancy or two.
Oh. Well, then you must know about the indictments.
About the what?
Folks accused of the Smith murders. 2 of your boarders have been indicted.
2 of my boarders...
Are being put on trial for the murder of old Joe Smith.
No, that can't be.
Well, no, don't worry about it. Nobody's taking it too seriously.
Who's on trial?
Oh, well, Senator Davis, for one. Listen, while she's getting coffee, I'm just wondering. I heard a rumor. Is Eliza Graham a Mormon?
What?
Well, I'm just wondering.
Why? I don't understand.
Well, just answer my
Looks
question.
like Mr. Fleming made some before he left for Boston.
Thank you, Eliza.
Now, who else from here, Mr. Sharp? Who else besides Senator Davis?
What about Senator Davis?
Eliza, he's on trial for murder, Mr. Sharp says.
No.
Yes.
My oath?
Now, who else from here? Of course, Mr. Aldrich.
Yes. That's right. How do you come to know that?
Well, it was in a newspaper, wasn't it?
Not that I know of. I haven't printed a word of this.
Well, then some other paper, I guess.
Which paper?
No, I think Mr. Fleming heard it, didn't he, Anne?
That's right, of course. It was Mr. Fleming told us.
He did. Well, that's peculiar.
Isn't it, though?
Well, it's humorous, really. Accusing men like that of murder, men who practically built the county. As I say, nobody's taking it too seriously.
No.
I mean, the governor's got to indict someone. Might as well be his enemies.
I'm sure you're right. Mr. Fleming reads your editorials.
But we keep ourselves to ourselves, mostly.
And I'll tell you one thing, though. Whoever put bullets in Smith, we ought to pin medals on them. They were patriots. That's what I'm on my way to print in my newspaper this morning. They put an end to the career of a tyrant.
A tyrant?
Yes, Joe Smith, the tin horn Jesus. He'd just about taken us all over. Well, you know that. Him and his mob of immigrant foreigners.
There's no law against being a religious man, so far as I know.
Well, no. No law against being religious. As long as you build up the kingdom of God instead of one for yourself. As long as you don't make yourself mayor, judge, jury, and general of the biggest army in the state. That's what Smith did. I don't understand how you can defend him.
I'm certainly not defending
Did you know
him.
that he was running for president? How would you like to have old Joe Smith in charge of the United States of America telling you what God says you've got to do?
Are you sure we can't
And
get
what
you
about freedom of the
breakfast,
press?
Mr.
That's about the
Sharp?
most
There
sacred
won't be
thing in the
no charge.
Constitution.
you're right.
Well, if Joe ran roughshod right over it, he smashed up the expositor when it dared to bring the truth about him. You know, when a tyrant takes away the precious freedoms of the people, what did George Washington do? What did Thomas Jefferson do? I tell you, whoever put bullets in him ought to get medals.
I never heard it put quite so plainly before. Did you, Eliza?
No.
All right, then. Listen, I apologize. Just makes my blood boil. Tyrant gets turned into a martyr, and the folks who stopped him get put on trial. That's not right. That's not American.
You're right.
And I'll tell you another thing, ladies. Whoever testifies against these patriots,
What?
well, let's just leave it at this. There's been killing already, hasn't there? All right. I'm going to calm down. Thanks for the coffee. Oh, and I should mention I'm one of the defendants.
Mr. Sharp.
No, I'm not surprised. Everyone always attacks the press. Now, neither of you ladies heard anything in here about those killings, did you?
No.
I mean, last year when it happened. Or later on. You know how folks like to talk in a tavern sometimes.
Goodness, no.
Eliza?
I generally don't pay attention to what people say in here.
Good girl. Well, it looks to be another fine day. I'm going out to breathe the free air. Keep safe. Remember, this new man Young still got the Mormon army.
Eliza?
What?
Eliza, why did he say all them things?
Because he's threatening us, of course. He knows what we heard that night, and he's warning us not to testify.
But we wouldn't. Months and months we haven't told a soul.
Until you bring up Mr. Aldrich.
No, it just slipped
We've
out.
got to be real careful now, till court week's done.
But if we talked, we'd lose everything. Don't you know that Mr. Fleming would take a fit?
Mr. Fleming will make sure you don't come before the court. Listen to me. You will never have to testify. It's gonna be all right.
Eliza, Mr. Sharp asked, was you a Mormon?
He did?
Yes.
I have to leave tonight. I guess I'll go on back to Nauvoo.
Why?
Anne, can't you remember anything? I testified to the grand jury last year.
But you didn't tell them nothing, did you?
No, of course not, but I'm whatever that is. I'm on record. Folks from the court will come looking for me to testify again. I thought they wouldn't, but Mr. Sharp must think they will. And I am not a good liar.
Eliza, you can't tell nobody, not one soul, not even in Nauvoo, you can't.
Nobody I'm talking to in Nauvoo. Now, you never told Mr. Fleming what you heard that night.
You know I didn't, of course not.
So we're all right there.
But why did Mr. Sharp talk about killing me?
Listen, we'll make it through this all right. You'll be safe here. And nobody will come after me in Nauvoo. Just don't talk about it.
All right, let me boil the case down to its essentials.
Are you a drunkard, Mr. Lamborn?
But this clarifies the mind is all. Half the time I fill it with sarsaparilla. Now,
Were you in this habit as Attorney General?
look, Mr. Young, in my experience, the practice of law requires the occasional stiff one.
Does not inspire confidence.
There, I just became a teetotaler. Now, no one knows who actually shot your man Smith.
Which is why this trial has always been a lost cause.
No, it ain't. Because you don't have to pull a trigger to be guilty of murder. Look, I'm Tom Sharp. I'm the editor of the Warsaw Signal. I hate you Mormons, so I tag along with the militia. And when the governor sends word to discharge it, well, I give those men a fire-breathing speech telling them to go on out to that jail and end the tyranny and lawlessness of old Joe Smith while they got the chance.
Mr. Lamborn.
If Sharp did that, if he incited to murder, if any of the defendants did, they're just as guilty as if they fired the shots. That's the law.
Conspiracy.
Yes, sir, Mr. Young. Conspiracy to commit murder. Now, here's where you come in. You help me get witnesses from your people. Folks who heard a defendant conspire or boasted about the murders after.
I see.
Here's John Taylor. He was in the jail.
He already gave his affidavit.
It'd be a whole lot better if he showed up and told his story to the jury.
He's still not completely recovered from his wounds.
Even better. Can he limp?
Elder Taylor will not return to Carthage. His life is in danger there.
Oh, but if you talk
Why
to
don't
him,
you get your witnesses from the militia? 100 men heard Sharp and the rest of them.
Oh, I will. I'll compel their testimonies and get what I can, but they're hostile and they'll lie. Now, how about Daniel Jones? His affidavit's promising.
Thinking of sending him on a preaching mission.
Sending him on... All right, Stephen Markham. He was there or thereabout.
I'm thinking of sending him on a preaching mission, too.
Mr. Young, can you explain to me why you're being so damned unhelpful? I got to face Orville Browning in that courtroom. You don't know what that means.
What do you get out of all of this, Mr. Lamborn?
I get to see murderers convicted.
I may look like a Vermont yokel to you, Mr. Lamborn. Some day laborer who got put in charge of a church for a joke. That doesn't mean I am.
All right, here's what I get. I get back into the charmed circle. Nobody wanted this case, Mr. Young. 2 prosecutors quit. Do you want to know the reason why? Because being on the Mormon side is a losing proposition. That means when I win, I ain't the disgraced Attorney General anymore. I'm the best damned attorney in Illinois. That honest enough for you?
Yep. Now here's what I want. To finish the Prophet's temple and to keep my people safe. Consider their danger if they testify.
State will provide them protection.
Like it did for Joseph and Hiram.
Mr. Young.
Do you know what a night rider is, Mr. Lamborn?
No.
We do. Because they ride to our houses at night and set fire to them. 30 homes since the murders.
Well, that's terrible, still.
If you stir things up, I think it'll get worse.
I can compel Mormon witnesses too, you know.
You can, and I can continue to send them on missions.
Mr. Young, don't you want to see your prophet's murderers avenged?
I want to put a saddle on a horse this second and get my hands around the neck of anyone who even thought of harming him.
Don't you think God wants that too?
The will of the Lord and what I want aren't the same thing.
What if he tells you to get me some witnesses?
Well then, Mr. Lamborn, I'll pass the news on to you.
Good. I hope he tells you soon.
So do I.
Oh, Eliza, now that you're really leaving...
Will you talk to Mr. Fleming? Make sure he knows I'm coming back.
You know I will. Eliza, where are you going to stay in Nauvoo?
There's a place I can go back to, I think.
Maybe you'll like it better there now?
I liked it well enough before, mostly.
I'll come visit you, maybe.
Good. I'd like that. Now, don't say anything, remember? We're the Silent Sisters, right?
That's us.
Sister Eliza Graham, isn't it?
Yes.
Welcome back to Mansion House.
Thank you.
We still use the wing in the back for the hotel.
I remember.
Yes. Will you be content with your old duties?
Thank you. I'll only be troubling you a couple of weeks.
They tell me you make the best breakfast in the county.
Oh, anybody can cook.
No, Sister Eliza, I can assure you from personal experience, not everybody can cook. Now, good breakfast will improve relations with our neighbors. We sorely need that.
I'll do my best while I'm here.
They tell me it was in this room. This is where everybody came to see the bodies.
Yes.
I wasn't here, I was back east. Apparently, they plugged up Joseph's wounds with cotton, soaked in camphor so that smell.
I heard that.
You didn't come?
No.
Oh.
I'm not much in the church these days.
I see.
Am I still welcome?
Tell me, what do you think of the temple so far?
Oh, it's beautiful. Truly.
What do you think of the windows?
They're beautiful.
You stay here as long as you like.
Mr. Browning,
Yes?
wonder if I might have a moment. May I come in?
It's the Sabbath. I'm on my way to church.
I'm here on behalf of the other defendants.
Nevertheless,
Mr. Browning, the trial begins tomorrow. We need to know your defense. Our defense.
this day hath the Almighty hallowed. I will not profane it. If your wish is that he sustain us in this trial, I enjoin you to search for him in prayer all this day.
You defended Joe Smith once. People say you were his friend. How do we know you'll do a good job for us?
Whom God places in my way to defend, I defend. He sustains me, Mr. Sharp, and ensures the victory. Particularly when my opponent is also his.
You mean Joe Smith?
I mean Josiah Lamborn.
Listen, we're innocent. All of us.
I must ask you never again to speak to me on that subject. That is a matter entirely between you and the Almighty. It does not concern me at all.
Mrs. Fleming, is it?
That's right.
Is your husband there?
No, he ain't, but there's big, strong fellows just to call away if I need them.
Oh, you won't need them. I'm a lawyer, man.
That ain't entirely reassuring.
I'm here on court business. I'd like to ask Mr. Fleming
You
if
ain't got nothing to say about court business.
Well, perhaps
Neither
you...
do I. Want some coffee?
How about Miss Eliza Graham?
She ain't here.
Do you mind telling me where she went?
Yes, I would. She's just gone.
Well, it's kind of peculiar, ain't it, to be just gone?
No, it ain't. It ain't the least peculiar to go visiting folks when you want to.
Listen, I'm staying over at Hamilton House in Carthage. I wonder if you could let me know if she stops in from Nauvoo.
Sure.
Nauvoo, huh? Thank you, Mrs. Fleming. I think I'll have that coffee some other time.
Brothers and sisters, I feel like shouting hallelujah that ever I knew Joseph Smith. He was our beloved prophet. He communed with angels and with the great Jehovah. He brought before our eyes the things of God. Now, tomorrow begins the court trial of the lawless men who killed him.
Miss Eliza Graham?
Some of you have been called to be jurors. A few have volunteered to give testimony. May the Lord bless and protect you.
Do you mind if we have a talk over at the mansion house?
For all the rest, we will attend to our own business and go nowhere within miles of Carthage. We will keep the peace. We charge all others to do the same.
It's a lost cause. Everybody says so.
It ain't a lost cause. There's going to be plenty of Mormons on the jury. There's got to be. It's the law. You people make up half the county.
What do you mean, you people?
You're going to tell me you're not a Mormon? You just happened to move to Nauvoo this week?
What if I told you I'm not?
Well, are you or ain't you?
I got nothing to say. I already told everything to the grand jury last year.
Thing is, I've read your testimony, and it's a couple jiggers short of a full drink.
What?
Well, it's incomplete, Miss Graham. That's why it caught my eye. Oh, I ain't saying you told lies, but questions weren't very good, were they?
What do you mean?
Did you hear shots at any time? Do you harbor personal feelings against any defendant? Pretty easy questions to answer without saying much.
I told the truth.
Miss Eliza Graham, up until yesterday, you spent pretty much every day working and living in the one place everybody in Warsaw came to talk. Now, suddenly, at the beginning of court week, you pack up all your things and move out here. You're telling me you don't have a story to tell?
I can't remember any more than I told the grand jury.
You can't remember.
No.
Are you scared, Miss Graham?
Why don't you compare my testimony if you don't believe me? I heard you've been doing that with militia fellas around the county. Why don't you get Sam Fleming to haul me over to Carthage?
Would you tell the truth if I did? Or would you forget the same things you forgot to tell the grand jury?
I got nothing to say.
Hello?
Who is it?
It's Thomas Sharp, Mr. Browning.
It is exceedingly late, Mr. Sharp.
Yes, it's past midnight. It's no longer Sunday. May I come in?
This is iniquitous.
Yes, I apologize, but we're all a bit nervous, as I'm sure you can appreciate.
Come in, then.
Thank you. Mr. Browning, there's something I'd like to say.
Yes?
But just hear me out, will you?
Of course, Mr. Sharp. You're my client.
If you get up at dawn and you look out that way, you can see the sun bring the prairie alive foot by foot. Then when it hits the river, it turns it to silver.
Why are you telling me this?
Because it's how we feel. This is our place. It's our home. This was our Zion before the Mormons came and overran it.
I appreciate your feelings, Mr. Sharp. Now, if there's nothing further,
wait.
a good night's
Wait.
sleep is the best arrow an attorney has in his quiver.
What about our defense?
What about it, Mr. Sharp?
Well, here's what we've been thinking. We figure we can get 25, maybe 30 men testifying on our behalf to our stature in the community. We're all prominent men.
I have no intention of calling any character witnesses. I will advance no positive case. There's none to be made.
Look, that doesn't-
It is well known that the Warsaw militia killed Joseph
Well,
Smith.
yes, but
4 of
just
you
because-
defendants are officers
Oh,
of
now,
the militia,
hold on a
and your
moment.
newspaper bellowed for Smith's death and justified the murders afterwards.
You believe that we're guilty?
Mr. Sharp, I will not ask you again. Do not bring up that irrelevant subject. Now, if it will ease your mind to learn my intentions, I will explain, but briefly. I need my sleep.
All right.
First, Mr. Lamborn will present his witnesses.
You won't find any witnesses.
You made sure of that, did you? Are you sure you threatened everybody?
Now, listen. We've got a right to look out for ourselves. That's in the United States Constitution.
Lamborn always finds witnesses, believe me. It will then be my task to bring to light their defects, their secret sins. Everybody has them. I guarantee he'll find no witness I can't impeach.
And that's it?
You claim Smith's death wasn't a murder, isn't that right?
It wasn't. It was an execution. A just execution for his crimes. He was a tyrant, a violent, bloody Napoleon.
Well, we need another execution.
Damn it, Browning, what do you mean?
His body is gone. His character remains. We must execute his character. I will demonstrate that Smith was so odious, so dangerous, that the public was only safe with him dead.
Well, now you're making sense. Here's where I can help.
You can assist by sitting quietly in the courtroom and looking as innocent as possible, and getting me a copy of the Expositor newspaper.
That's all you need.
That, and a new jury. Don't worry, I'm working on that too.
This is certainly an unusual request to make of the court, Mr. Browning.
Unusual? Hell, it's a damn freak of nature.
Judge, will you please direct counsel for the prosecution not to blaspheme?
I'll tell you what's blasphemous, Richard. Hancock County commissioners are very much prejudiced. They chose the panel of jurors in such an unfair manner as to imperil the defendant's rights and lives. It's a downright upsetting.
Does prosecution deny that 2/3 of the county commissioners are Mormon?
What I deny, Orville, is that a jury panel is unfair and oppressive just because it's got some Mormons on it.
Judge, this is a formal affidavit requesting that you quash this prejudiced panel.
Look who signed it, Richard.
Signed by the defendants. That is unusual.
Orville, you can't just quash a jury panel because the defendants don't like who's on it.
What's your precedent, Mr. Browning?
Blackstone, Volume 4. You'll note that if there is a tolerable ground of suspicion that those selecting jurors are prejudiced, the court may select a new panel.
Now, you're saying that the county commissioners are prejudiced because they're Mormons.
Why, surely.
Why?
Why, is it likely they'd stop at anything to see the blood of their prophet avenged?
Well, then why didn't they choose all Mormons for the panel? Why less than half?
Why, surely, Mr. Lamborn. You, of all people, understand the importance of creating the illusion of honesty.
Richard, if Orville wants to impeach the county commissioners, you've got to hold a hearing, and he's got to produce evidence of prejudice.
There's no time for that. This case has to be decided this week. I'm due in Springfield.
Orville, name me one single case in the whole history of U.S. jurisprudence where a panel of legally selected jurors has been set aside because the defendants asked the judge, pretty please.
Stop calling me by my Christian name. We are not intimates. Admittedly, Judge, there is no precedent.
Right.
But there's never been a case like this.
It's a murder case. There's been plenty of those.
No. This is a test of whether or not a court will uphold what it means to be American. How do you think it feels to put your life's blood into farms and towns and to watch while a horde of strangers, many of them foreigners, moves in to threaten all you've built?
Would you like foreigners, Orville?
You go to the polls, but the horde always outvote you because it's Napoleon is telling it how to vote.
What's your evidence for that? The Warsaw Signal?
So it creates county commissioners and a jury to convict innocent men. Judge, I put it to you. Will anything happen to the horde this time, or will tyranny continue to reign? It's in your hands. What would a statesman do?
Richard, if you quash this panel, it'll send a signal that you don't intend to conduct a fair trial. My friendly witnesses will run for cover, and I ain't got that many.
Are you accusing me of impropriety? You?
Wait a minute. You two talked about this already.
Enough. I've heard enough.
You cooked this up earlier.
I'm going to accept the defendant's affidavit. The panel of jurors is hereby quashed. I will instruct Sheriff Deming to
Well,
select
actually,
a new panel.
Judge, remember, Sheriff Deming is named in the affidavit. He, too, is prejudiced.
Ah, well, then the next selector is...
The coroner, who unfortunately is a justice of the peace in Nauvoo, and so...
Now, here's an idea. Why don't you just ask the defendants who they want on the jury?
First, the judge allows indicted murderers to roam the county freely. Now he dismisses an entire panel of jurors.
It ain't good, I know.
There's not one Mormon on that jury now. This is justice in Hancock County.
I can still win the case if I get the witnesses.
Mr. Lamborn, you must be the last man in Illinois not to know what this trial is really about. Listen. The people of Hancock County cannot rise above the prejudices excited by your religion. I confess I do not foresee a time when you will be permitted to enjoy quiet. Signed, the Honorable Thomas Ford, Governor of Illinois.
When did he say this?
3 weeks ago. So, you see, the governor isn't looking for a conviction. He's looking for an eviction, ours.
How could Tom...
The trial is just to clear his name before the next election, and we will no longer have anything to do with it.
Is that God speaking to you? Is that the will of the Lord?
It is the will of Brigham Young!
Miss Gray, witnesses are deserting this case like paint peeling off in July. I know you got a story to tell.
If I do, I'm not telling it to a room full of guns and not a Mormon on the jury. I'm sorry. Goodbye, Mr. Lamborn.
Yeah, goodbye. Only I don't understand you people. I really don't. I thought this Brother Joseph meant something to you.
You listen to me. Tom Sharp said he'd make trouble for me and my kin. He talked about killing. Am I supposed to risk that for a man? For a man who...
Who what? A man who what?
Nothing. I never wished him any harm. But now he's dead, I don't have to go risking myself and my kin for Joseph Smith.
You got something against him?
Of course not.
Don't you people more or less worship the man?
No. They revere him.
Well, then...
But that doesn't mean everything he did or said was perfectly right.
Oh. See, I thought the idea was Smith got his news straight from God. Otherwise, why keep him on the payroll?
Don't say such things.
All the time getting revelations for you. Why don't you do something for him and testify?
Revelations? Well, they all can't have been revelations, can they? He keeps at me to testify.
I'll tell him to stop.
He said none of us cares about the prophet.
It's a lawyer's trick, Sister Eliza, to apply pressure.
I don't know what to do.
You figured I've got some counsel for you.
That's what I hoped.
Only you aren't much in the church these days, right?
No. You're right. I should go.
To be perfectly honest, on the subject of this trial, the heavens seem to be brass.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why. I've got so much anger piled up around my spirit right now. The Lord can't clear away the brush. At this moment, I would rather have a six-shooter than all the lawyers in Illinois. Sorry.
Well, I guess I'd better go on back downstairs. How can a revelation, how can something that comes from God hurt people? How can that happen? If it hurts someone, it can't come from God, can it?
Seems unlikely.
Right.
However, there are what you might call precedents. Job, Abraham and Isaac, Paul with rocks flung at his head in Lystra, Christ in Gethsemane, Joseph and Hiram in Carthage Jail. I don't know, Sister Eliza. I'm afraid it may just be that sometimes hurt and the will of the Lord do travel the same road. But if they do, I know that road leads straight to his arms.
I'm sorry I upset you, dear, but you was insistent to know, so I told you. Dear, Mr. Fleming, please don't take on and be upset. I hate it when you shut yourself up like this. Won't you come out?
Brother Pitt, members of the Nauvoo Legion Band, thank you for that stirring march. And now we all thank the Lord that the final capstone has been laid to the temple.
All right, then. You just stay in there for a spell. But honest, I think everything will turn out right. We just need to make sure we don't tell nobody about that night, because you know Eliza won't. She's too scared. I almost forgot it myself. We've been so busy.
It is a fine edifice, an edifice of beauty and grandeur. I believe the windows are particularly fine.
So we just won't talk about it. Eliza says that's the right thing. Or would you rather we do something else?
I now pray the Almighty to defend us in this place and sustain us until it is finished, inside and out, and we have all got our endowments.
Dear Mr. Fleming, you know I'll do what you think is right, long as I don't have to go to court. I don't think I could. I can't do that.
Now, Brother Pitt, final hymn.
Circuit Court comes to Hancock County twice each year, in May and October.
It stays a week, clears up whatever business is put before it, and then moves on to another patch of Illinois prairie.
It is May 24th, an especially clement spring Saturday. 200 Hancock County citizens crowd into the second-story courtroom in Carthage.
Roughly the same number as the mob that killed the Smiths.
Almost everybody attending court comes armed to the teeth, as if this were a militia muster instead of a trial. The St. Louis, Missouri Republican.
The decision of Judge Young to quash the jury panel is considered a great victory for the defendants, the Burlington Hawkeye.
The impression appears to be that the Mormons will not attempt a very rigorous prosecution. The Sangamo Journal.
The state of Illinois charges that the defendants, not having the fear of God before their eyes, unlawfully, willfully, and of their own malice aforethought, did cause to be killed and murdered Joseph Smith, Jr., Levi Williams, Mark Aldrich, William N. Grover, Jacob C. Davis, Thomas C. Sharp. How do you plead? Courtroom. This is not Missouri. I caution you, spectators, that I will remove the rowdy from my court. There are another 200 outside ready to take your place, so you will not be missed.
Hell's bells, a man can't hear himself think.
Your Honor, surely the dignity of this court will be better served if counsel for the state does not besmirch it with his odious oaths.
Yes, save your tavern expressions for the tavern, Mr. Lamborn. They have no place in my court.
Oh, I guess we're not going in for freedom of speech here, members of the jury.
Consider yourself warned, Mr. Lamborn.
Your Honor, I'm supposed to go first in this tea party, but my witnesses for today haven't shown their faces.
I guess the citizens of Hancock County just don't have anything to say to you, Mr. Lamborn.
Quiet!
Lamborn! You too, Judge!
And you, Court Deputy Fleming, will accompany both of you out of my court, after which he will fetch the man on Mr. Lamborn's witness list.
Your Honor, where are the other 4 defendants in this case?
Released on recognizance bonds, as you know. They're not required to attend all sessions.
Oh, I suppose Tom Sharp here is just covering the trial for his newspaper. These men are on trial for murder, and yet, members of the jury, they're not spending a night in jail. You suppose the Smith brothers wish they'd been so lucky?
Mr. Lamborn, Mr. Browning, you're both out of order. And Mr. Browning.
Your Honor.
Please counsel your client that the court will look with little favor upon any further outburst from him. Proceed with your opening statement, Mr. Lamborn.
Yes, sir. All right. The state's case is conspiracy. Now, what does that mean? Tom Sharp here, this fella, he called for Joseph Smith's blood in his newspaper. Listen to this.
Objection, Your Honor.
Orville, you can't object to my opening statement. It's not polite.
Your Honor, Mr. Lamborn is about to read a newspaper article. That's hearsay evidence. It's not admissible.
It ain't hearsay evidence. Your client wrote it. He called for the extermination of the Smiths. That's a direct quote.
You allege that he wrote it. It's not a signed editorial.
It's his newspaper. Mr. Sharp, did you write this?
Mr. Sharp is not in the witness stand, Mr. Lamborn. I'll allow the objection.
Well, hell.
I have cautioned you about swearing. Do you want me to find you in contempt?
No, sir. I don't fancy my chances for a safe night in Carthage Jail.
Have you concluded your opening statement, Mr. Lamborn?
Just about, Your Honor. Now, none of you is a Mormon, thanks to Mr. Browning. Well, neither am I. So we don't care two spits in the wind for the man who got murdered in the jail down the street, do we? It wasn't our prophet, and he wasn't very popular around here, apparently. But now just suppose for a moment that some of you got to be unpopular with some folks in Hancock County. Think you'd still like to be protected by the law? Or would you prefer the rule of Tom Sharp, the exterminator?
Your Honor.
That's all I got to say for now.
Mr. Browning.
Thank you, Your Honor. Gentlemen of the jury, 2 men were killed in Carthage Jail last June. No one disputes that tragic fact. However, some might say that the death of Joseph Smith wasn't a murder at all, but an extra-legal execution for black and serious crimes. Some might say that his tyranny, his unlawful control of the courts and the elections.
Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Lamborn. Are you objecting?
I'm bewildered, Your Honor. You see, I thought we were trying murderers here, and Orville seems to be libeling their victim.
I'm going to overrule your bewilderment. Continue, Mr. Browning.
Now, who were the men wrongfully accused of these executions? A state senator, a clergyman, officers in the militia, a newspaper editor, respected citizens, lovers of liberty. Who was Smith? That he was in jail for treason against the state, you know.
Trumped up charge.
That Smith destroyed the sacred engine of the people's freedom, the newspaper press, you also know.
He baited a public nuisance.
Mr.
But
Lamborn.
what you do not yet know are the revelations printed about him in that newspaper. They are why he had it destroyed. Here, let me read you the true character of Joseph Smith.
Objection.
Why? Are you afraid to let the jury hear the depraved depths to which this man had sunk?
Now, this really is hearsay evidence, Your Honor. A pack of lies printed by his enemies. If I can't read my newspaper, Orville, you sure as hell can't read yours.
Mr. Lamborn is correct. The objection is sustained. And we will recess until the prosecution's witnesses arrive.
Here you are. Thank goodness. I thought I'd never find you. I've been walking through these streets. People told me you were up here at the
mansion house, they call it. How are you?
I had no idea Nauvoo was this big. All these streets, straight line this way, straight line that way. And I couldn't be sure if people could tell I ain't a Mormon.
No one's gonna hurt you here.
That's not what they say in Warsaw.
They've been real good to me. They gave me something to do and a place to stay. Oh, but I miss family, though. It's a treat to see you.
The accounts is all in a heap already.
Oh, well, don't worry. You know I'll set it all back straight again. Anne, you want to see the kitchen here?
Oh, no, I can't stay long. Mr. Fleming will take on.
He doesn't know you're here?
Goodness, no. I ain't such a fool as that. I brought your things, books you left, your sewing frame.
Oh, you shouldn't have gone to the bother. I'll be back in a week.
Well...
Anne, I'll be back in a week, won't I?
Oh, Eliza, I'm sorry.
But I was coming back. A few days after court week, same as we planned, soon as everything calmed down. You didn't tell Mr. Fleming about that night.
I couldn't help it. You know how he gets. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got to go now. Don't be mad at me.
I'm not mad at you, Annie.
I may not get to see you again.
Why, Annie? Why?
Goodbye.
John Peyton, according to your grand jury testimony, you were a member of the Warsaw Militia. That right?
Sure.
Sure. Nothing wrong with that. Now, you heard Tom Sharp hooting and hollering, trying to get folks stirred up to go attack the jail after they were discharged.
I might have.
That's what you told the grand jury in October.
Well, sure, then.
What'd Tom Sharp say?
Don't know what you mean.
Did he say anything about killing Joseph Smith?
No.
Anybody say anything? You said somebody was getting that crowd of soldiers going.
Well, sure.
Who said what, Mr. Peyton?
I couldn't tell. I don't know what their intentions was.
Jonas Hobart, you told the grand jury you heard firing from your home and come running to the jail. That correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you know all the defendants by sight except Grover.
I do.
You see any of them at the jail?
No, sir.
There was over 100 people milling around with guns. You see anybody there you knew?
No, sir, not one person.
Mr. George Walker, you were in the militia too.
I didn't hear nothing, I didn't see nothing, and I don't know anybody.
No, I never heard these men talk about the murders before or after or any time. Canfield Hamilton.
I didn't want to hear anybody. And I wouldn't have heard anybody if anybody wanted to tell me. Captain John Wilson.
Your Honor, I call Frank Worrell to the stand.
You swear to tell this court the entire truth, fearing Almighty God?
I do.
Well, Mr. Worrell, you gonna lie like all them other fellas?
Do I have to answer that?
Mr. Lamborn is making a rhetorical point. Mr. Worrell?
Let me give you some questions you do have to answer. You're a soldier in the Carthage Grays sometimes, aren't you?
I'm proud to be a lieutenant in the Grays.
What was your job on the day the Smiths were murdered?
I was in charge of the 7-man detail guarding the jail.
You was guarding the jail, the Smiths was in.
Yes.
Now, let me get this straight, Mr. Worrell. There you are with 6 other fellas. You're standing with, rifles in front of the door to the jail.
Of course.
Why were you doing that?
It was what we was ordered to do.
Who gave that order?
The governor,
Oh, he thought just maybe the Smiths might be in some danger?
I guess.
Well, here they come. 100 or more of the Warsaw Militia, ready to attack the jail. Oh, Mr. Worrell. What is your other job?
What?
Well, all you militiamen volunteer your time. You don't get paid for it. That's what makes it patriotic.
Yes, sir.
So what do you do to make money?
Well, I own a store.
Very good one, too, gentlemen of the jury. I bought this collar there. Got no complaints. You all ought to stop into Mr. Worrell's store.
Well, thank you.
Actually, I think a lot of you do. Saw a lot of traffic there. In fact, Mr. Worrell, just how many folks visit your store?
Well, I'd say about all the county stops in from time to time.
So I suppose you know about everyone in the county.
I know a fair few. They're about a third by sight and name.
Heavens, that's a lot. So there they are, bearing down on you.
Who?
The fellas who do their buying in your store, all dressed up like the Warsaw Militia. How many did you recognize?
Oh. Well, I didn't recognize any of them.
Not one.
Witness has answered Mr. Lamborn's question.
I just find that incredible, Mr. Worrell. Here you supply sundries to the whole county, yet you don't recognize one soul in that group of 100 or more. Is that what you're saying?
Their faces was blackened, and there was a lot of smoke once they commenced firing their
You're
faces.
sure? Not one. Think, man.
He's badgering the witness, Your Honor.
Hell, he's my witness.
Find another line of questioning, Mr. Lamborn.
Mr. Worrell, what did you do when this big horde of unrecognizable fellas come storming down?
We did our duty.
You fired your rifle.
We did.
Anybody get shot?
No.
How close was this band of liquored up soldiers when you fired on it?
About 8 feet away.
You and your guard detail fired on them point blank, and not one soldier took a bullet?
That's right.
Lieutenant Frank Worrell, did you load blank cartridges so that when you fired, there would be no danger to the mob attacking the jail?
Witness does not have to answer that incriminating question.
And did that mob know by prior arrangement that you'd be firing blank?
Mr. Worrell is not on trial.
Your Honor, I'm trying to establish conspiracy. If Frank here and his men fired blanks, it must have been because somebody told them to, and those somebodies are the defendants.
You don't know that.
We'll all start to know it when Lieutenant Worrell answers my question.
Your Honor, I must ask you, in the interest of fairness, in the interest of statesmanship,
What's statesmanship got to do with it?
not to let this persecution go any further.
Your Honor, will you please direct the witness to answer my question? Did he load and fire blank cartridges? Your Honor. Judge Young. Richard.
Mr. Lamborn,
Ah, my silent witness.
what are you doing here?
Well, seeing as how tomorrow's a day off, I figured I'd spend the night here in Nauvoo. I am not drunk, Miss Graham. Drunk is not something I ever seem to get. Good night.
How's the trial going? We don't get much news here.
Oh, the trial? Well, let's see. I got witnesses don't have the slightest inclination to tell the truth. Orville doesn't even cross-examine them. And I got a judge who won't compel testimony from an eyewitness to the shooting because he's already started his campaign for governor. Trial's going about like I expected. Of course, you can't blame poor Richard. He's scared to death. Take a look at that. You can see why it seems prudent to spend the night here.
You can't go back.
Oh, they ain't really gonna lynch me.
You don't know that. You don't know what people can do.
Well, of course, I ain't a woman of the world like you are. Still, I got some
What
idea.
happened to your hand?
Fear of strangers.
Hold on. I've got something. There are terrible people in Carthage.
Oh, I agree. Of course, this happened in Nauvoo. Some boys didn't like the look of me, I guess. Happily, Mr. Young was standing across the street. So you see, Miss Graham, it's dangerous everywhere, depending on who you are.
What would I have to say?
I beg your pardon?
Would I have to face all those people?
Ain't no way around it. I wish there was.
You say none of us cares about the prophet.
It's what it seems like.
To me, Joseph Smith was Moses, and John the Baptist and the Archangel Gabriel, practically.
If you say so.
And then a couple of years ago, they were just opening this part of the mansion house. Emma, that's the prophet's wife. She'd been clear to St. Louis to buy furniture and linens and silverware. I can remember it like it was yesterday. There was a new red carpet. And the prophet and Sister Emma decided to make a party of it. They used to do like that all the time. Everything was a celebration. So I was flying around, helping get everything ready, singing a hymn. I was so happy. Around noon, I came up into the passageway from the private part of the house, and
Yes.
And there was Sister Emma, just standing there. Her eyes were red and her face was terrible with grief. I was going to walk on and leave her private, but she spied me. "Oh, Sister Eliza," she said. She looked so stricken, I took her hands, and she just clung to me then and sobbed and sobbed. And then she told me. And my heart just broke up into pieces.
I'm not following this.
Have you ever heard of spiritual wifery, Mr. Lamborn?
No, can't say as I have.
Joseph Smith took another wife. People don't know this. Lots of Mormons don't know it, but it's true. And it broke Sister Emma's heart.
Well,
She said it came from God. And Brother Brigham says, sometimes God asks painful, unhappy things. And I guess he's right if you read your Bible. He's still the prophet, Sister Emma kept saying. And she believed it too. She stayed loyal to the day he died. But my belief in him just flew away like sparks from a fire.
son of a gun.
In my heart, I quit the church that day.
If Smith got it wrong over this, which he may not have done, stranger things have happened in heaven and earth, but if he did, ain't you supposed to forgive him?
Why should I?
Well, don't the Bible say something about not judging? Ain't you believers supposed to forgive and forget?
That's what everybody says when they're the ones who did wrong. Forgive and forget. Well, I can't forget anything. I remember everything. From what color my first dress was to what date the whiskey's coming down from Boston.
You do?
Yes, every damn detail of my life.
Now listen to me. Over Browning once told me, this was after he defended him in 41, he said that after an hour's conversation, he thought that Joseph Smith was the greatest man in America. Of course, he wouldn't say that now.
You're just trying to get me to testify.
Of course I am. But that don't make this any less true. People ain't all one thing. Not one of us. Why, Governor Ford's head is full of moonbeams half the time. It still doesn't make me want to quit being a citizen of Illinois.
It's not the same thing.
You think your prophet made some mistakes? Think he might have done a couple good things, too?
He poured the light of heaven down on our heads.
Well, which is he then? His mistakes or his miracles? I got to tell you something. When I was Attorney General, Miss Graham, I took 2 bribes. Now it was plain, unadulterated, pure foolishness, as wrong as it could be. But believe it or not, those 2 bribes don't sum up my entire life.
I didn't tell the truth. At least not all I knew to the grand jury.
No, I didn't figure you did.
What do you think of me now?
I think you bandaged your hand about as well as anyone ever knew.
What would I have to say in there?
Eliza, you'd have to say the truth.
Come thou
Long expected
Jesus, born to set thy people free. From our fears and sins release us, let us find our strength in thee.
I am delighted to speak this Sabbath day in your lovely Carthage church.
We're leaving the county, brothers and sisters. We're leaving the state of Illinois and the whole country.
And I am likewise delighted to be passing time in your beautiful county on the banks of the rolling Mississippi.
The valley of the Great Salt Lake. Fremont says it is a country which rivals in richness the alpine regions of Switzerland.
Surely it is as a fertile Canaan, overflowing with milk and honey.
That is where the Lord will lead us. To a land where there is none to set fire to our houses and granaries.
Most of you know that God hath granted me the privilege of defending 5 of your county's most sober and honorable citizens.
When the autumn comes, plant no winter wheat. We will be gone before its harvest. Let that be a sign to our enemies. They may come and buy our farms and every building.
Here to Hancock County they've come to build their homes and their lives. And here, found innocent of wrongdoing by a jury of their peers, they will stay.
Prepare yourselves, for we are going like the great camp of Israel out of Egypt forever.
Let us turn to our Sabbath text in Exodus. Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and the righteous slay thou not.
All right. To sum up, Mr. Daniels, will you tell the jury just one more time what you heard Tom Sharp telling the Warsaw militia?
Yes, sir. Mr. Sharp said they might never again get the prophet into their power and they ought to hasten to Carthage to execute him.
And what did the militia do?
Some went home. Most cheered and started for the jail.
Sure sounds like conspiracy to me, members of the jury. Thank you, Mr. Daniels. You're all through.
A moment, Mr. Lamborn.
Hold on, Mr. Daniels. You must have impressed learned counsel for the defense. He's actually deigning to cross-examine you.
Mr. Daniels, do you go by William?
Yes, sir.
And you're a Mormon?
Yes, sir.
Are you a good one?
I think so.
Are you a truthful one? Is telling the truth part of the peculiar Mormon religion?
Sure.
Good. I have here a small book entitled The Correct Account of the Murder of Generals Joseph and Hiram Smith. It says its author is a William W. Daniels, eyewitness.
Objection. Mr. Daniels has already given his testimony about his book.
Your Honor, I'm trying to establish this witness's credibility. If he exaggerated events in his book, he may have exaggerated his testimony.
I'll allow it.
Did you write this book, William?
Well, mostly.
Just explain to the jury what that means.
I had some help composing it.
Oh, well, that doesn't seem very honest, does it? The cover proclaims you and you alone as the author.
Well, Lyman Littlefield wrote it down, but it was my story.
I see. Is it a true story?
Yes, sir, it is, just like it says on the cover.
All right, then your book states that a man ran towards Smith while he was lying on the ground.
That's right after he died.
Then suddenly there was a marvelous light.
It was like a flash.
Your book says it was a streak.
Well, a streak then.
Well, tell me then, right now, William, from your own memory, what did that man have in his hand? And remember, you are under oath to Almighty God to tell the truth.
He had a flute in his hand.
A flute. But your book says he had a Bowie knife, and he was going to cut off Smith's head for the reward in Missouri.
Well...
What stopped him from cutting off Smith's head with that flute? It was the marvelous flash of light, wasn't it?
No. Yes!
Your book says it made him stop like a frozen statue. Now, before God, did that really happen?
They put that in the book? I never said that.
Do you sell this book for money and also exhibit a painting of the scene to gullible Mormons?
Well, so what if I do? A man's got to make his way in the world.
No more questions, Your Honor.
I only charge 50 cents.
You may retire from the court, Mr. Daniels. The deputy of the court will see you to your wagon.
Sorry, Mr. Lamborn.
You did your best, William. Now get on home to Nauvoo quick as you can.
Do you have another witness, Mr. Lamborn?
Well, I'm waiting for one, Your Honor. I was hoping she'd show up this morning.
Your Honor, I'm not aware of this witness.
It doesn't seem to matter, Orville, since she ain't here.
If Mr. Lamborn has concluded his case, the defense is prepared to go forward right now.
Mr. Lamborn?
Hold on. Hold on. Let me see here. I call Mr. Benjamin Brackenbury.
Josiah.
Must be another chair here somewhere.
Too bad about your man Brackenbury. I'm sorry.
Drunk on the day of the murder. Trust Orville to worm that out of him.
He's a skillful advocate.
Say what you want about him. He is that. Oh, I would dearly love to beat that sanctimonious Sunday school teacher.
You won't. You know that. The jury's against you.
Here's to our fine jury. Sterling characters all. You know something, Richard? I loved being Attorney General.
You did a lot of good.
Along with the bad, that's what people remember.
That's not so.
No? Richard, when you're governor, you're going to point me to the bench?
Josiah.
I thought so. Here's to the charmed circle.
Look, you've had death threats on this case, haven't you?
So what? So have you. What do you want me to do, Richard? Quit?
Yes.
Oh.
You can't win this case.
I have never retired from a case.
This one is different. Your life may be in danger. I'm concerned about you.
That goes straight to my heart.
And when are you going to get rid of this rot gut, man? It's killing you. What are you being paid?
$100.
$100 for the entire proceeding?
That's right.
Well, I'd say you've done your $100 worth, Counselor. What does Governor Ford expect you to do? Get us both killed?
But why can't I testify? I've got a lot to say.
Defendants in murder trials do not take the stand. That's state law.
But I want to talk about the sacred freedom of the press. I want to talk about the land.
Mr. Sharp, it may interest you to learn that my research for this trial has included you. Your love for this land is actuated by your fervent wish to speculate, a wish thwarted by Mormon land purchases.
That's a damned lie.
And all this caterwauling about freedom of the press. Your Warsaw Signal was an abject failure until you hit on the scheme to increase its circulation by screaming like Beelzebub at the Mormons. One wonders, Mr. Sharp, when you've finally driven them out and you no longer have an easy target to boost sales, how long you'll be interested in the sacred freedom of the press.
How dare you,
now,
sir!
Heed me. This trial is proceeding exactly as planned. Lamborn's produced not one witness who credibly linked you or any of the defendants to the murders.
Executions. Not murders. Exterminations by men who loved this country and its freedoms.
Now it is our turn. I've secured a dozen men who will pour scorn on Lamborn's witnesses. That was the plan. Remember, Mr. Sharp? This case is won. You'll go free.
Browning, wait!
Listen, can we adjourn till this afternoon? Maybe I can get back to Nauvoo and find my witness.
This witness was to appear yesterday. Let's get this done, Josiah.
But Richard!
If that concludes Mr. Lamborn's case for the state.
All right, I'm done.
Mr. Browning, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution's case rests entirely on...
Mr. Sharp, what is it?
Lots.
Order! Mr. Lamborn, who is this woman?
My witness. Your Honor, I need a short recess. The state asks a minute.
Mr. Browning?
Fine.
1 minute recess.
Hey, sure, but I think I'm surprised to see you.
Well, you shouldn't be. Seems to me I heard a fella say once in mighty bad English, people ain't all one thing.
Listen, Browning will cut up rough. He'll call you a
You
liar.
look terrible. What have you been eating?
Whiskey, mostly. Come on.
Witness for the state will take the stand.
Your Honor, you cannot allow this witness. The state has concluded its case.
Defense will present its case after this witness has testified.
Judge, I must warn you, this irregular decision will be seen as unfair.
Is that so, Mr. Browning? By whom?
People of importance. People who make political judgments about who is and who's not a statesman.
Oh, no. Yeah, you go ahead and be a statesman again, Governor.
No. I will not compromise Illinois jurisprudence to please you, Mr. Browning, or your people.
So be it.
Like that, a kick in the pants.
Sit down, both of you. This witness will take the stand. Do you swear to tell this court the entire truth, fearing Almighty God?
Yes.
You may proceed, Mr. Lamborn.
Now, I got to tell you, members of the jury, this witness never sat still long enough for me to depose her. So I guess we'll all hear her story together. Miss Graham, will you tell this court what you know?
I used to work for my relatives at Warsaw House. I used to get meals there, clean, take care of the boarders' room some. Last summer, late at night on June the 27th, Ann Fleming and I were working late, and a lot of men came in.
Do you need a minute, Miss Graham?
No. These men, they stayed for hours. They wanted meals.
Who were they?
Most of them were in the Warsaw militia.
Were any of them the defendants, Miss Graham?
Mr. Sharp was there.
That's a damn lie. Quiet.
No, it's not, Mr. Sharp. I've been scared to say it, but you were there. Anne asked you how you got on at Carthage, and you said, we have finished the leading men of the Mormon church.
I never said that.
Mr. Browning,
You did
restrain
say
your
that.
client.
You said we killed old Joe, and they all said it. There were about 60 men, and Mr. Davis was there, and Mr. Grover. They were all boasting and laughing. We killed old Joe. We killed old Joe, and they did. I know they did. They killed the prophet.
We will adjourn until 2 o'clock for Mr. Browning's questioning of this witness.
You rehearsed her, I assume.
You assume what you want, Orville.
She seems like a nice woman. It's a shame. I'll have to be a little insistent when I question her.
What's that supposed to mean?
I have a grand jury testimony.
So have I.
Then you know she lied. And you know my cross-examination will end whatever welcome she has left in this county. Or
what?
my clients are prepared to settle this case.
You've been reading dime novels again, Orville. You can't settle a murder case with the state of Illinois.
No, I mean we're prepared to settle with you, personally,
With me. Personally.
for a substantial amount.
Why, Orville Browning. Are you attempting to bribe me into retiring from this case?
Certainly not. I'm making on behalf of my clients a legitimate settlement offer.
Bribery is what you tried to get me disbarred for.
This is not bribery. This is ensuring that justice is done. Those men are innocent, Josiah.
Josiah. Are we intimates now, Orville?
My clients are prepared to offer $500.
$500.
An amount which no doubt purchases a large quantity of liquor.
Sure does. Eliza Graham's testimony must have really rattled you.
Well,
What do I have to do?
admit your lack of evidence in your closing argument.
And you?
I spare your weeping witness.
A lot of money in here.
I won't call in defense witnesses. We'll go right to closing and finish this today.
Oh, Orville. I believe God must be a mite disappointed in you today.
His sacred name is a blasphemy in your mouth. It is his will I follow.
What? He whispered into your ear, go bribe counsel for the prosecution. I'll look the other way.
It's his will I win!
Please proceed, Mr. Browning.
Miss Graham, may I call you Eliza?
No, I don't think so.
Take note of the witness's hostility, members of the jury. Well, Miss Graham, you seem to recollect a lot of detail about a night that happened a year ago. You even remember direct quotations. Who said what to whom? Why is that?
The night stands out in my memory.
You have remarkable memory, which means, I suppose, you could just as easily recall other statements made at roughly the same time?
I guess so.
Good. I assume you heard Joe Smith preach.
Lots of folks did, whether they were Mormons or not.
Objection. What's that got to do with the price of cattle? I'd like to know.
Your Honor, I'm simply testing this witness's memory.
Oh.
I'll allow it if it's a reasonable test. The witness's memory is relevant. Unless the state has an objection.
No, you carry on, Orville.
Now, I have here one of Mr. Smith's strange sermons. The last he gave before his decease a year ago. It was on the occasion of a Mr. Follett's funeral. Were you present for that sermon?
Most all Mr. Follett's friends went.
I assume you recall it then. It was memorable, apparently.
I think so.
Can you recall what he said on the occasion about the Almighty? Here, Counselor. You'll tell us if Miss Graham's recollections are correct.
About God?
Yes, about God in the beginning, as he put it. I assume someone with a good memory would recall it.
I remember he said, I will go back to the beginning, before the world was, to show what kind of being God is.
I'll be damned, that's word for word.
Open your ears and hear, all ye ends of the earth.
Thank you, Miss Graham.
For I am going to prove it
That
to you
will
by
do,
the
Miss
Bible.
Graham. I'm sure we're all impressed by your parlor trick.
You wanted to remember anything else for you, Orville?
Miss Graham, are you a Mormon?
Objection. There's no way that's relevant to what this witness saw and heard, unless counsel is claiming that Mormons have different eyes and ears than the rest of mankind.
They do. They perceive what their leaders tell them to perceive.
Mr. Sharp.
Your Honor, I have some character questions based on this witness's grand jury testimony last year.
I'm going to allow the witness to answer the question, and I don't want to hear a peep from anyone.
Well, Miss Graham.
Yes. I'm a Mormon.
Did you keep that a secret from people at Warsaw?
Like you knew.
What about everyone else? The customers who came to the tavern, for instance, did you lie to
I
them?
wasn't feeling so much
I
like a Mormon.
repeat, did you lie to the citizens of
I was
Warsaw?
afraid. There's some bad feelings about Mormons
So,
there.
sometimes you lie when you're afraid, such as when you testified to the grand jury that you didn't know anything about the killings. Your Honor.
Answer counsel's question, Miss Graham.
Take a look at that grand jury transcript, members of the jury.
You'll have a chance to redirect, Mr. Lamborn. Go on, Miss Graham.
I didn't tell them anything I didn't have to.
You see, this witness lies when it suits her.
But I'm telling the truth now, I swear it. And there's nothing I'm getting out of it except maybe my only kin in trouble, and me the object of Mr. Sharp's next hateful editorial.
Oh, you can count on it.
An oath, Miss Graham, is a terrible thing. It puts your soul in the palm of God's hand.
I know that.
And when you break it, his hand closes over you. Yet you, an oath breaker, come in here expecting this honest jury to believe you. Why should they? Why are you suddenly telling the truth now?
Because someone has to. They died, those men. Someone has to care about that, no matter what.
Miss Graham, I respect your depth of feeling. It may interest you to learn that I knew your prophet.
I know that. So then you understand.
I do. Indeed, I do. I expect you're a widow now, Miss Graham.
No? Why would you? I've never been married.
Oh, did Joseph Smith just make you his spiritual wife?
Objection!
What?
Objection!
Isn't spiritual wifery the gross immorality the expositor press exposed?
I don't know.
Isn't that why he had it destroyed? Has Brigham Young made you his plural wife?
Objection! That is just pure offensive!
Yes, it is. Does it have a point, Mr. Browning?
Your Honor, I'm trying to establish collusion between this witness and the Mormon leaders.
Then do so properly. The jury is directed to disregard this line of questioning.
Your Honor, I had just one more question. Miss Graham, did Brigham Young send you here to lie to this court?
Nobody sent me. And I'll tell you something, Mr. Browning. There may be things in Nauvoo you find peculiar, but one thing is for certain. There are 2 women there still grieving so hard they don't know if they want to take their next breath because their husbands were gunned down. And children who won't ever get over it. And God knows I heard what I heard at Fleming's Tavern.
I used to like looking out the east window towards the temple. Now I always find myself here looking west across the river. Do you ever think about making a fresh start, Mr. Lambourne?
Just about every day.
You know what it feels like to be a Mormon. It's about all we've had is fresh starts. Will you tell me about the trial?
Well, Orville Browning's paraded all his character assassins up there, one by one.
So, it isn't going well.
I'm pleased to report to you, sir. The trial's going exceedingly well. Orville hasn't scratched Eliza Graham's testimony. It is about run out of ammunition.
And then you adjourn.
And then we recess before closing arguments.
Will you come see me again during the recess? I would come your way, but...
I know. All them writs out against you. Can't say as I blame you.
Mrs. Fleming, I'm Orville Browning, attorney at law.
No, I got nothing to say to you, attorney at laws.
I think in this case you do, ma'am. Your husband sent me.
Oh.
What you did in that courtroom yesterday, that was glorious.
Josiah, when this is over, will you let me cook you a decent meal?
Hell's bells, Eliza. Why are you always trying to shove food at me?
Well, if that's how you feel.
I accept. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Fleming. Do you swear to tell this court the entire truth, fearing Almighty God?
All right.
Are you in distress, Mrs. Fleming?
No, sir, no.
We'll only detain you a short while.
Mr. Fleming was away in St. Louis. He wasn't near our place that night.
Yes, Mrs. Fleming, that's fine.
It's important everybody knows Mr. Fleming was away.
Thank you, yes. Now, the night that you speak of, was that June 27th of last year?
Yes.
Will you please tell us all what happened that night?
Nothing happened. Nothing bad happened.
Eliza Graham told us quite a story about a lot of men showing up that night at Warsaw House.
I never saw them.
She said Thomas Sharp was among them.
No. No, that definitely did not happen. Mr. Sharp wasn't there that night any time.
Well, then I suppose he couldn't very well have said anything about the killings at Carthage.
I told you he wasn't there.
Mrs. Fleming, I understand Miss Graham is your relative, but in the interest of justice to these accused men, I must ask you, why would she lie about all these things?
I don't know. Eliza's a good woman.
Well, she lied to some folks about being a Mormon, didn't she? Mrs. Fleming?
Yes.
So, in your opinion, is Eliza Graham a liar?
I guess so.
Thank you, Mrs. Fleming.
Mr. Lamborn.
Oh, Mrs. Fleming. I wanted you to be a witness for my side. Why didn't you show up?
Mr. Fleming advised against it.
Your husband?
Yes.
The same Sam Fleming who is deputy of the court this week and is standing right over there.
Yes.
Well, you're here now. How come? Don't tell me. Mr. Fleming advised it after he heard Eliza Graham's testimony.
I come to tell the truth.
Very good idea. Something of a novelty here this week. Mrs. Fleming, how'd you get that bruise on your face?
Objection, Your Honor.
On what possible ground?
That information is hardly relevant to Mrs. Fleming's testimony.
Oh, it's very relevant to members of the jury. Because a good cough can make you say just about whatever somebody wants you to. Can't it? Who hit you, Mrs. Fleming?
Nobody. Nobody.
I'm going to excuse this witness right now. You go on home, ma'am. And Mr. Fleming, I'd like to see you in the clerk's office.
They didn't believe her. Nobody in the jury did.
And they did believe Sister Eliza.
I'd say this jury considers Eliza Graham's testimony holy writ.
So there's actually a chance.
Very good chance. Hell, I may run for governor now.
You've done a remarkable thing, Mr. Lamborn.
I certainly have. I'm going to win this case.
Yes. That's the trouble.
What are you talking about?
I've come to believe that it would be better if you didn't win it.
No, I'm not hearing it. What do you say? You want to see your prophet's murderers walk away?
You know that's the last thing I want.
Well, then. Oh, no. Don't tell me Brigham Young has finally heard the voice of God. Oh, damn it! I'm supposed to win this case. I told you what this means to me.
Mr. Lamborn.
What about Eliza?
Mr. Lamborn.
Oh, it's too late anyway. All that's left is closing arguments. Judas Priest, everybody's after me to lose this case. At least Orville offered me money.
All I can tell you is what I believe and why I believe it. What you do after that is entirely up to you. Will you hear me out?
In summation, members of the jury, I confess myself surprised but gratified that the light of truth has burst upon Mr. Lamborn here at the end of the trial. He has repudiated all his perjured witnesses. You are now free to return these good and honest men to their rightful place as leaders in your community. I know you will do your duty for Almighty God. The defense rests.
Eliza, hold on.
I have to get these meals up to the temple.
Just give me a minute. I gotta explain it
It
to you.
doesn't matter. I knew it was a lost cause. I told you that at the beginning.
You told the truth. Hell, I know that.
I guess that's why you figured you had to lump me in with all those liars.
Eliza, listen to me.
How much money did you get for it?
The jury will now withdraw to consider its verdict.
Wait.
Yes, Mr. Lamborn? You've already given your closing argument.
Prosecution gets one final say before the jury retires. Ain't that the procedure?
Do you have something to say?
Yes, I do.
Everything's as good again now, right, Mr. Fleming? I know you won't do nothing like that again. It's all in the past, I know that, so there ain't no need to mention it, and I ain't going to. I brought you some river fish here, cooked like you like. We'll be getting plenty of boarders now, is the good news, won't we? Well, you just come on out when you're ready. Mr. Fleming, you know I love you, don't you?
He told the jury my testimony might be unreliable.
Forgive him, Sister Eliza.
He made me out a liar. And those men are guilty. I know they are.
What do you think will happen if the jury comes to that conclusion?
What do you mean?
You were in that courtroom. What was it like?
Like being in the midst of a mob.
We know that look. Our enemies howling for our blood. That's not all. There must be 100 right here in Nauvoo, just waiting for a chance to take vengeance.
Not vengeance, justice.
Well, justice is a long road. It goes right through the grave and beyond, and I'm not the toll keeper on that road, are you? Now I'm not Joseph. I'm just plain Brigham. But maybe the Lord can speak to Brigham too, if he talk slow enough. I believe these murderers have to go unpunished.
Why?
So our people can get out of here alive, without the blood of our enemies on our hands. So none of us has to look back on what we did here with shame.
Did you tell Josiah to renounce my testimony?
No. I just told him what I told you. What he did was entirely his decision.
But those men are murderers. I can't just forget that.
Sister Eliza, maybe some things we just have to let go of so we can go on.
But how can we bear it?
We can't. I loved Joseph and Hiram. I loved them. I believe Mr. Lambourne has honored their memories. Come west with us, Sister Eliza. Will you?
Mr. Browning, are your clients prepared to abide the judgment of this court?
After the trial, Judge Richard M. Young sought the Democratic nomination for governor. He lost.
They are, Your Honor.
Orville Browning had a spectacular career, becoming a founder of the Republican Party and Secretary of the Interior under President Andrew Johnson.
We're ready and confident, Your Honor.
Thomas Sharp was elected mayor of Warsaw 3 times in succession, and then to a 4-year term as judge of Hancock County.
The jury finds the defendants not guilty as charged in the indictment.
The Almighty hath delivered me the victory.
September 10th, 1845, Hancock County night riders burned down a Mormon village.
By the end of October, 100 Mormon homes have been put to the torch.
November 19th, 2,500 wagons are ready to leave Nauvoo.
You did a good thing.
I know it. And I'm sorry. It won't happen again. So what are you going to do now?
Well, I can't stay here anymore.
No, I wouldn't recommend it.
I lost my kin.
I'm sorry.
What about you?
Me?
What are you gonna do? You could come west with us.
I ain't a Mormon.
No, and I don't recommend you join up. You wouldn't like it a bit.
Got to admit, it don't look like much fun.
But you could still come. Say you'll come.
I got to go east. I got a case over in Mason County. I got to go lose.
Oh.
Eliza, do you really want me to come with you?
Yes, I do.
Well, hell, that's about the most beautiful thing anybody ever said to me.
Really?
Truly. But it's like I come up over a rise and I look down into some green valley. See lots of folks down there walking around, taking their ease in each other's company, and I think, that's where I want to be. Then I look down at my feet and I see my path just don't go that way.
Josiah, it's just a matter of believing you can make a new start.
What I'm trying to say is that ain't for everybody.
No. I don't guess it is. All right, then. Well, you know where I'll be. About 1,000,000 miles west of any place any decent person's ever heard of.
I'm sorry, Eliza.
Don't be sorry for me.
I ain't sorry for you.
February 4th, 1846. The first wagons roll across the frozen Mississippi.
Welcome on you, saints. It's time for the camp of Israel to depart.
By acclamation, Brigham Young is made second prophet of the Mormon Church in Winter Quarters, Nebraska.
Let all who would journey with us organize into companies.
Members of the jury, you're about to retire into that room back there and find these men, these murderers, innocent.
Josiah Lamborn's career was not so illustrious.
It's all right. I know you are. I helped you do it. Wasn't hard. Since to you, murder just ain't murder if you happen to dislike the victim.
Let each company provide itself with teams and wagons, provisions and clothing, for we are going.
Well, I got to tell you, you're doing the right thing. Well, not because of Joseph Smith's morals or his militia. Hell, y'all got one of those. No. It's his ideas. I've been reading them, and they're so dangerous, so pernicious. You folks had no choice but to kill him.
Unlike Israel of old, we must leave the bones of our Joseph in Egypt.
Listen to what he wrote.
2 years after the trial in Greene County, Illinois, Josiah Lamborn died of delirium tremens.
Hold out to the end, and we shall be resurrected and become like gods. As far as I can tell, this man believed that human beings could become like gods. Now, how's that for blasphemy, members of the jury? But just try to grasp it for a moment, if you can. All our weakness, our fear, little hatreds, and our meanness, all turned into glory. Now imagine somebody actually believing that. Oh, Lord, my God.
Farewell, Illinois.
Goodbye, Hancock County.